The ticking of a clock echoed through the darkened house in Canton, Georgia. Outside, New Year's Eve fireworks exploded brilliantly across the night sky, their flickering lights slipping through the cracks in the windows, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The chill of the winter night crept in through the door frames, mingling with the distant sounds of laughter and celebration. A cruel contrast to the tense, oppressive atmosphere cloaking Morgan Metzer's home. In the stillness, the soft creak of cautious footsteps on the old wooden floorboard struck like hammers to the eardrum. A tall, shadowy figure moved through the darkness, a mask obscuring his face, revealing only eyes glinting with madness and obsession beneath the dim moonlight pouring in through the window. Step by deliberate step, breath by measured breath, the figure crept toward the bedroom, toward Morgan, sleeping peacefully, unaware of the nightmare about to unfold. New Year's Eve of 2020 should have been a night of hope and new beginnings for Morgan Metzer, a young woman with a radiant smile and eyes filled with faith in the future. After a broken marriage to Rod Metzer, she was slowly rebuilding her life, reclaiming the joy and peace she had lost over years spent in a toxic relationship. Her small home in Canton had become a safe haven, a place where she could start anew, far from the shadow of a former husband who had tried to control and manipulate every aspect of her existence. But on that fateful night, the ghost of the past returned, bringing with it a horror Morgan could never have imagined. While she slept, a masked figure slipped into her bedroom, carefully hiding his identity. Morgan awoke in a panic as she sensed the intruder's presence. Before she could react, he lunged at her, plastic zip ties in hand. In the dim light, he overpowered her, binding her wrists and ankles tightly, leaving her helpless and unable to resist. A wave of absolute terror washed over Morgan as the attacker began his assault. He beat her savagely, fists landing hard on her fragile frame, leaving bruises and pain in their wake. His fingers clamped around her throat like a vise, cutting off her air, making her feel her life slipping away. Her vision blurred, narrowing into a tunnel of darkness. And in that moment, she believed she wouldn't live to see the first sunrise of the new year. But this was only the beginning of the nightmare. With Morgan weak and nearly unconscious, the attacker committed his most heinous act, brutally violating her and stripping her of the last shred of bodily autonomy she still had. The physical agony fused with emotional torment, leaving a deep, festering wound in Morgan's soul, one she knew would never truly heal. Throughout the assault, the attacker said almost nothing. The terrifying silence was only broken by a few short commands and threats, and in those rare, chilling moments, one strange detail lodged itself in Morgan's mind. Even amidst her panic and trauma, his voice, it sounded like Batman's, deep and raspy, as if he were deliberately altering it. This seemingly insignificant detail became an indelible part of her memory, a crucial clue in this tragic tale. Once he had satisfied his cruelty, the attacker took Morgan's phone and used her face to unlock it via facial recognition. Then he used an app to unlock the back door of the house. In the final moments of the nightmare, he placed a pillowcase over Morgan's head, leaving her in a semi-conscious state, tied up, unable to call for help, consumed by pain and humiliation. That horrific night seemed endless for Morgan. Every tiny sound startled her, haunted by the thought that the attacker might return to finish what he started. But instead, something bizarre happened. Rod Metzer, Morgan's ex-husband, suddenly showed up at her house and found her in a state of devastation. He quickly called 911 to report the brutal attack. When questioned by police, Rod claimed that he had just happened to be passing by Morgan's house when he heard faint tapping on the window and someone calling her name. Concerned for his ex-wife's safety, he decided to check it out, only to discover her in a horrifying condition. His story sounded plausible, and at first, Rod was seen as a hero who had rescued Morgan from grave danger. But as Morgan began to recover from the shock and shared more details about the attack, pieces of the puzzle started to fall into place. She remembered the moment when the attacker lifted her off the bed with a strange sense of familiarity. The way he positioned his hands to carry her reminded her of how Rod had once gently lifted her during her pregnancy, a tender gesture only a husband would know. That memory, though blurred by panic, planted a seed of doubt in Morgan's mind. Detectives from the Cherokee County Sheriff's Office, led by Detective Reinhardt, a woman with 15 years of experience in domestic violence cases, began to dig deeper. Initially, the investigation followed the path of an unidentified assailant, collecting DNA samples from the scene, fingerprints on surfaces in Morgan's home, and debris from under her nails as she struggled to fight back. Crime scene specialists traced muddy footprints outside the window, photographed faint shoe prints on the carpet, and documented every minute detail that could offer clues about the attacker's identity. But as Morgan's memory grew clearer and her testimony more detailed, the focus of the investigation shifted. Her account of the Batman-like voice and the strange familiarity when the attacker lifted her caught Detective Reinhardt's attention. The attacker's knowledge of how to unlock Morgan's phone and access a specific app to open the back back door, something not widely known, suggested this wasn't a random act of violence. It was a deliberate attack by someone who knew Morgan extremely well. The bizarre coincidence of Rod showing up at the crime scene became the catalyst for a new direction in the investigation. The police began questioning how Rod had known Morgan was in danger. During more thorough interrogations, his account of hearing a faint tapping on the window began to show inconsistencies. Why was he walking past his ex-wife's house on New Year's Eve of all nights? How could he have heard a weak knock on the window from outside when closer neighbors hadn't heard a thing? And why didn't he call 911 immediately upon hearing a cry for help, instead choosing to enter the house first? With mounting suspicions, Detective Reinhardt decided to widen the scope of the investigation into Rod Metzer. She requested a warrant to search his apartment and electronic devices, a complicated process that required solid evidence of reasonable suspicion. The police were especially cautious not to wrongfully accuse someone who had reported the crime and initially appeared to be a hero. Every step of the investigation was meticulously documented. Each piece of evidence was sealed and preserved according to strict protocols to ensure its admissibility in court. The search of Rod's apartment took place on a stormy morning, led by the Cherokee County Police Department's top investigative team. Every corner of the apartment was thoroughly combed through, from closets and under the bed to the smallest cracks in the walls and floor. This was no ordinary search, but a painstaking effort to reconstruct the story behind a meticulously planned crime. In the corner of Rod's closet, hidden beneath a pile of old sweaters, investigators found a small black box. Inside was an old mobile phone, not the one Rod used daily. When they unlocked the device, they uncovered a disturbing trove. Dozens of nude photos of Morgan, taken secretly in her bathroom and bedroom, clearly without her consent. These images were dated and organized over a span of months, both before and after their divorce, showing that Rod had been secretly watching and photographing Morgan long after their relationship had ended. This chilling violation of her privacy rang the first major alarm bell and pushed investigators to dig even deeper. During the meticulous search, the team also discovered a hidden space cleverly disguised beneath the floor in Rhodes' home office. By removing a patch of carpet and opening a concealed trapdoor, they found a small drawer containing several suspicious items. Among them was a set of black plastic zip ties, identical to those used to bind Morgan during the attack. This match was confirmed not only by visual comparison, but also through forensic lab analysis, which determined they came from the same manufacturer, the same production batch, and even had identical micro scratches on the surface. These weren't just everyday household items, they were specific, purposeful tools, and undeniable evidence of premeditation. Alongside the zip ties, investigators also found a plain black mask, a pair of leather gloves, and a small bottle containing an unidentified liquid, which was later determined to be a mild anesthetic. These items formed a complete kit for a pre-planned assault, as if a horror movie had come to life. The mask even contained strands of hair, and forensic DNA testing confirmed they belonged to Rod, an unshakable link between him and the tools used in the crime. But the most damning evidence came from digital forensics. Electronic crime experts spent weeks analyzing Rod's computers, phones, and other devices. They recovered deleted files, decrypted secure apps, and dove deep into his web browsing and search histories. The results were shocking. In the 2 months leading up to the attack, Rod had conducted hundreds of searches related to his criminal plan. He had searched, he had downloaded voice-changing apps and watched video tutorials on deepening his voice, perfectly matching Morgan's testimony about the attacker's strange vocal tone. He had also searched for things like how to knock someone unconscious without leaving a mark, weak spots on a woman's body during an attack, and choking techniques that don't leave bruises, all of which mirrored the exact methods used against Morgan. Particularly disturbing were numerous searches for how to hack iPhone passwords, bypass Face ID while someone is asleep, and even smart unlock apps for Morgan Metzer's house, directly naming the victim. Rod had spent hours researching Morgan's home security system, identifying weaknesses in the app she used to control her locks, and even saved a detailed diagram of her home's layout, complete with notes on the quietest paths of entry at night. Even more chilling was the discovery of a secret tracking app that had been installed on Morgan's phone while they were still married, and which Rod continued to access after their divorce. This app allowed him to know Morgan's exact location at all times, monitor her calls and messages, and even activate her phone's microphone and camera remotely to see and hear what was happening around her. This grotesque invasion of privacy revealed the full extent of Rod's obsession and control over his ex-wife. Detective Reinhardt made another incredible incredible discovery while digging further into Rod's past. 6 months earlier, he had forged a fake cancer diagnosis letter, complete with the logo of a local hospital, a fabricated doctor's signature, and detailed lab results claiming he had terminal cancer. Rod sent the letter to Morgan, along with a tear-stained handwritten note saying that his dying wish was to reconcile with her before he passed away. Morgan, compassionate and kind-hearted as ever, believed the lie. She began spending time caring for her supposedly dying ex-husband, taking him to fake doctor's appointments, preparing healthy meals based on doctor's orders, and even allowing him to stay at her house during difficult treatments. This lie and psychological manipulation went on for weeks, until Morgan accidentally uncovered the truth during a conversation with a friend who worked at the hospital Rod claimed to be attending. Outraged and betrayed, she cut off all contact with Rod, a decision that may have triggered his horrifying revenge plan. Reviewing Rod's financial records, investigators also found a string of suspicious transactions in the weeks leading up to the attack. He had withdrawn a large amount of cash, nearly $15,000, from his savings account with no clear explanation of how it was used. Online shopping records showed he had purchased numerous items related to the assault from various websites, using multiple shipping addresses to cover his tracks. These included zip ties, gloves, masks, and even books on infiltration and attack techniques. The final nail in the coffin came from the city's surveillance system. Video analysts spent hundreds of hours reviewing footage from security cameras along the routes between Rod's apartment and Morgan's house on the night of the attack. Initially, nothing suspicious was found until a blurry clip from a gas station half a mile from Morgan's home showed a man matching Rod's build, dressed in dark clothing, getting out of a car and walking toward her house at around 11 p.m., approximately 1 hour before the assault occurred. Expanding their search radius, investigators found another surveillance video from a local hardware store that captured Rod buying a pack of black zip ties exactly 3 days before the attack. The footage showed him carefully selecting the exact type of ties, even testing their strength before purchasing. This completely shattered the facade of a random good Samaritan he had worked so hard to present. Notably, Rod paid in cash, a clear attempt to avoid leaving a digital trail, but the security cameras had recorded everything. With the mountain of evidence piling up, Detective Reinhardt took a bold step. She requested verification of Rod's whereabouts at the time of the attack. According to his statement, he was home watching TV when he just happened to go outside and heard Morgan calling for help. However, power consumption data from the utility company showed no significant electricity usage at Rod's apartment from 8 p.m. to nearly 1 a.m., the time frame he claimed to be home. Internet records also revealed no activity on his home network during this time, despite his claim of streaming movies online. The forensic analysis of the mud and grass samples taken from Rod's shoes, the same shoes he wore when he came to rescue Morgan, revealed that they contained soil and plant matter identical to what was found in Morgan's backyard. This suggested that he had walked through that area before entering the house, contradicting his claim that he only approached the front door. Forensic experts also discovered microscopic blood stains on the sleeve of the jacket Rod wore. That night, blood that DNA testing later confirmed belonged to Morgan. During the investigation, police also interviewed many people who knew both Rod and Morgan. These interviews painted a disturbing picture of their relationship prior to the divorce. Many described Rod as someone with extremely controlling tendencies, always wanting to know where Morgan was and what she was doing. A close friend of Morgan recounted how Rod had once installed cameras in the house to monitor her, checked her phone every night, and even followed her to work once because he suspected she wasn't being truthful about her schedule. These behaviors, while alarming, had been normalized in their relationship, with Rod often justifying them as signs of care and love. Faced with an increasingly overwhelming mountain of undeniable evidence, the interrogation of Rod Metzer became tense and dramatic. During the first 72 hours following his arrest, Rod stubbornly stuck to his original story, insisting he was merely a passerby who saved Morgan. He maintained a calm exterior, even appearing shocked and hurt by the detective's suspicions, repeatedly reminding them that he was the one who called 911. Confronted with this stalemate, Detective Reinhardt employed a sophisticated interrogation strategy. Rather than directly accusing Rod, she gradually revealed pieces of evidence in a carefully curated sequence, allowing Rod to entangle himself in a web of increasingly complex lies. She started with the smallest details, contradictions in his initial statement. Why was he walking near Morgan's house on New Year's Eve when the temperature was below freezing? Why didn't he see the attacker if he arrived right after the incident? As Rod offered explanations that sounded plausible but couldn't be verified, Detective Reinhardt moved on to stronger evidence. She placed a photo on the table from a surveillance camera showing him purchasing zip ties 3 days before the attack, and asked if he could explain why he had bought the exact type of zip ties used in the assault. For the first time, cracks appeared in Rod's calm demeanor, but he still tried to justify it as a coincidence, claiming he needed the zip ties for some repairs in his apartment. The detective then presented cell phone data showing Rod's device had been located near Morgan's house prior to the time he claimed to have discovered the incident. When Rod attempted to dismiss this as a possible GPS error, door. She placed his search history on the table, filled with queries about how to change one's voice to sound like Batman and how to hack an iPhone. By this point, Rod's once confident face had crumbled, but for Morgan, the true journey was only beginning. Physical wounds might heal over time, but the psychological scars she carried ran far deeper. The feeling of betrayal by someone she had once trusted, loved, and shared a life with left indelible marks. Fear, anxiety, and recurring nightmares haunted her every night, making it extraordinarily difficult to rebuild her life. Morgan began long-term therapy, learning to confront and process the trauma she had endured. She sought support from domestic violence survivor groups, where she could share her story and listen to others who had gone through similar experiences. Slowly, she began to gain a deeper understanding of narcissistic personality disorder and the warning signs she had missed during her relationship with Rod. Out of pain and loss, Morgan found a new purpose. She began sharing her story more widely, hoping to raise awareness about narcissistic abuse and psychological manipulation in relationships. She launched an online platform to help other women recognize and escape toxic relationships before they escalated to violence. Every day, Morgan received dozens of messages from women across the country who, thanks to her story, were recognizing patterns of control and manipulation in their own relationships. Many of them found the courage to leave and start new lives. For Morgan, there was no greater reward than knowing her painful story had helped prevent similar tragedies. In 2023, 3 years after the attack, Morgan published a book about her experience, titled Behind the Mask: Surviving Manipulation and Violence. The book not only chronicled her story, but also offered practical tools for identifying and escaping manipulative relationships. It quickly became a valuable resource for mental health professionals and domestic violence organizations across the country. Today, Morgan Metzer has become a symbol of resilience and recovery. She is frequently invited to speak at conferences and domestic violence seminars, sharing her story with remarkable courage and honesty. Each time she tells it, she feels stronger, as though reclaiming the narrative of her life from the man who once tried to steal it. New Year's Eve 2020 changed Morgan Metzer's life forever. But instead of letting it define her as a victim, she chose to make it part of a greater journey, a journey of healing, recovery, and ultimately helping others. From the darkness of an unimaginable nightmare, she found light, not just for herself, but for countless others still trapped in the shadows of toxic relationships. In the courtroom, as Rod Metzer was sentenced to 25 years in prison, Morgan stood tall, her head held high. No longer the fearful, broken woman her attacker had left behind that New Year's Eve. Instead, she was the embodiment of strength and resilience, a living testament to the truth that no matter how deep the darkness, light always finds a way to shine through. Morgan Metzer's story is a painful reminder of the hidden dangers that can exist behind seemingly normal relationships. It is also a call to action, urging us to pay attention to the warning signs of manipulation and control, and to stand with those facing domestic violence. As night falls in Canton, Georgia, the lights in Morgan's house still shine brightly. No longer a place of horror, her home has become a symbol of rebirth. Laughter echoes from within as she hosts support gatherings for other survivors of domestic violence. Outside on the porch, a single purple light, the symbol of domestic violence awareness, glows like a beacon, signaling hope to those lost in the darkness of fear and abuse. The night may still be dark, but Morgan Metzer has found her light, and with each person touched by her story, another candle is lit in the shadows.